Welcome to Black Book TV, where we spotlight Houston's best Black-owned businesses.
I just want to see Black businesses do well. That's it.
Yeah.
Because you're basically telling them, like, I'm necessary.
You are.
One thing about God, He will give you the vision.
What's up, Black Bookers? Welcome to another episode of Black Book TV, where we highlight the most phenomenal entrepreneurs, business leaders, community impact leaders, just everything that you can think of. We got it, and we're going to interview them, showcase them, and highlight them. Today, I have a very special guest with me. She is an attorney graduating from the Cooley School of Law. She does an amazing job. You may know her as the pardon attorney. She has been a pardon attorney under 3 different presidential administrations: George Bush, Barack Obama, as well as Donald Trump. And today we're going to break down just everything. We're just going to get into it. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of all of it.
Okay.
So, coming from Houston, Texas, I know you've been all over. You've been in D.C., you've been in Dallas. You've just been all over doing a phenomenal job. And when people say Tammy Allison, well, at least when I hear people say Tammy Allison, they refer to you as the pardon attorney. But before we dive into that, like, what made you, like, want to get into law, period?
I always tell people that the thug life chose me. I did not choose the thug life. I ran away from law for so long because my mother was an attorney. She recently passed away in June of 2024. And I actually went to chiropractic school prior
Wow.
to law school out here in Houston, Texas, in Pasadena, Texas Chiropractic College. But it was some of the students at that school that encouraged me to explore other areas of law, other areas as a profession,
Mhm.
because back then the law did not really cover chiropractors in terms of getting adequately compensated from attorneys.
Oh, wow.
So I actually ended up applying to law schools and got accepted to a law school that was in Michigan, and that's how everything started.
Got you. So from going to, Michigan, graduating, did you work at your mom's law firm at all, or? Yeah.
So I'm first generation Nigerian American.
Mhm.
So anybody that is first generation understands you don't have a choice, okay? In one capacity or another, yes, I worked for my mother at home and in her law offices, but just growing up, witnessing her studying for her examinations, because she went to law school at a later
Mhm.
age, it definitely influenced me, and I definitely worked for my mother's law firm in order to get paid during high school and college.
Got you. Now, you worked over a decade as a pardon attorney for the U.S. Department of Justice. Is that correct? Or am I saying that properly?
Well, I worked in different areas at the U.S. Department of Justice, but my very first position
Okay.
was at the U.S. Department of Justice's Office of the Pardon Attorney.
Okay. And you did that with 3 different administrations.
Yes, I
President
did.
Bush, President Obama, as well as President Trump.
I did.
How was it different working under those 3 different administrations, or was it all kind of the same?
Back then, because I started my career at the Office of the Pardon Attorney at a time where the U.S. Department of Justice was very strictly nonpartisan.
Mhm.
So it was very similar under those 3 different administrations. I started fresh out of law school in 2008 as an intern, and just being from Houston and understanding like the work ethic that it takes to get anywhere, and really wanting to prove to myself and to the world that I can accomplish something as prestigious as being a U.S. Department of Justice attorney, and not have people correlate that with the fact that my mother was an
Right.
attorney. I worked really hard, but I worked also really hard to follow the rules of ethics. And the
Mhm.
rules of ethics at the U.S. Department of Justice mean you cannot consider any type of politics in the type of work you do when you evaluate those petitions for presidential pardons. But the technical term is federal executive clemency pardon
Got you.
versus commutation. But under Bush, Obama, and Trump, very slight differences,
Mhm.
but the key always remained the same, that the individual needed to accept responsibility. But after the Office of the Pardon Attorney, I also worked as a federal prosecutor in Washington, D.C. on the criminal misdemeanor side. And then I also worked as a special assistant United States attorney doing civil defense on behalf of the government in Washington, D.C. And then I ended my career in 2020 after 3 years as an employment law attorney for the Federal Bureau of Prisons.
Oh, wow. 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 So you have a very impressive resume.
It's just some lightweight,
No. We ain't, on this show, we don't do that, right? On this show, we don't do that. We don't do
Not
that.
too much, not too much.
Talk your stuff. Talk
know.
your stuff.
I
Talk your stuff.
have I'm very well versed in all stages of the criminal justice system.
I see. And that was going to be like one of my next questions. So as a partner attorney, you have to really be very knowledgeable in several different aspects, because I would assume that getting pardons for each client is very different, right?
Yep.
So you have to be like very knowledgeable to know their specific case.
Yeah.
So not only did you go to chiropractic school thinking like, hey, I want to be a chiropractor, but then saying, hey, no, I want to follow this path into law, you like really dived deep into it, like super deep into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think all of my life experiences, especially being from Houston, Texas, and the culture here in Houston is different than anywhere else in the world.
Absolutely.
You can't compare it to anything else. Having the cultural background of being a first generation Nigerian American, plus being around individuals who have big pickup trucks. They don't like to go to grocery stores. They like to go hunt to get their meat, right? Having all of those types of experiences definitely help to influence, my quote unquote success that other people see. Because whenever you're applying for clemency, which is the proper terminology, a federal executive clemency, if there's a federal conviction, a deep dive into each person's entire life is taken into consideration, because essentially what they're asking for is to be forgiven.
Yeah.
They want the president to forgive them for the offense conduct. And in order to do that, when you say, hey, I'm sorry, when you say sorry to anybody, you have to show, why are you sorry? What are you doing to earn the government's forgiveness? And in that regard, you have to really take a deep dive into that individual, regardless of their race, regardless of their sex, regardless of their religion or political affiliation. What are you really doing to atone for that offense conduct? And what are you doing to reduce the likelihood of committing another crime? And a lot of people just say the word recidivism, not understanding that. Don't nobody know what that means.
Yeah.
So I think that my goal and my mission always has been with my firm to just speak in layman's terms so everybody can understand, because at any given moment, any one of us can end up with a conviction.
For sure. And while you were saying that, I thought about a particular case that's very popular, right? We talk about Larry Hoover, right?
Oh, yeah.
Being that you are one of the few Black, if not only.
The only.
Okay. With that whole process, I know that Jay Prince was advocating for a pardon on behalf of Larry Hoover. I know Drake at one point, Kanye West. Like, you have all these different celebrities. Did anybody reach out to the pardon attorney?
I never got. No.
And if you can you kind of like break down the case or any misconceptions or anything that general public may not be taking a look at or overlooking to see why is this man still in prison, and why hasn't he, been able to receive a pardon at this point?
Yes, absolutely. No one reached out to me specifically in terms of the case of Larry Hoover. I did see the push. I saw the merch. I saw the... Listen, I didn't even say anything. I saw the merch. I saw the collaboration. I believe it was with Gap, and portions of the sale of the proceeds going towards the arguments for Larry Hoover's quote-unquote pardon. All of it was chaos, because that's not how that works. And it's just not how that works. I worked there at the actual office of the pardon attorney, and sometimes people they don't want to tap in with me. I don't know why, but a Google search will reveal that Larry Hoover doesn't need a pardon. He's still incarcerated. An individual that is still incarcerated is seeking a commutation of sentence. A commutation of sentence reduces the amount of time for them to remain incarcerated. It also can remove or reduce any fines or restitution. So when I see people screaming pardon for Larry Hoover, I'm a little confused because Google is free and it's wide
Yeah.
open, and that's not how that works. You're seeking clemency for Larry Hoover in the form of a commutation of sentence. And whether it's a commutation for someone that's currently incarcerated or a pardon for someone who has already been released,
Okay.
pardon lets people get their rights back. A
Got you.
commutation lets them essentially get out of prison early, right? Um, the standard remains the same. Like I said earlier, clemency is forgiveness.
Mhm.
You're acknowledging, hey, I messed up. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Please forgive me. So if there's an argument that you're innocent or you didn't do it or there is foul play, clemency is not the proper forum because the application will absolutely get denied.
Got you.
Okay? So when I see it, I also have to remind people that the individuals that have a strong likelihood of success for clemency are those first-time, nonviolent
hmm
offenders, and also individuals that don't have any violence and they don't have any types of indecency. Those are the types of cases that are more likely to have clemency granted, whether it's in the form of a commutation or a pardon. And that applies also at the state level.
Got you. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for giving us that insight and that input, because I definitely was confused on it. Right.
Mhm.
A lot of times when you hear pardon, people automatically think presidential pardons.
Yes.
Right. That's the first thing that comes to mind, and just seeing these presidents here recently, at the end of their terms, they start giving out all of these pardons. Right. And the question always comes up: why haven't they pardoned Larry Hoover? Why is it, and I think you did an excellent job of like breaking it down to help us better understand the process of what he should be seeking versus what the culture is like saying, hey, why isn't this happening? So we definitely thank you for that insight.
Yes, and that's literally the reason why I,
Mm,
resigned from federal service after 10 years in 2020 to launch this firm, The Pardon Attorney, in order to inform and educate the community so people understand what these terms actually mean and to help them with their expectations. Because a lot of people have wild stories.
oh yeah, for sure.
Wild stories. I've heard the most unhinged accounts of things that have happened. And while I don't doubt that it has actually happened to that individual, it's my job to help them understand that in order to seek clemency, right, you have to exhaust all of your judicial and administrative remedies first. For example, if there's an individual that's saying, I didn't do it, I
Mhm.
was set up, why are you asking for forgiveness?
So first you got to do the appeal process and all of those things.
Exactly.
Got you.
And that's why, I try to speak in layman's terms. I try to just let people know and understand I'm a regular civilian just like them,
Mhm.
and just having the skill of being able just to talk to people like humans, not to speak over their heads, really teach them so that they can go and do it for themselves if they really
Mhm.
wanted to. My clients pay me for convenience, not because I'm gatekeeping
Right.
or making them feel like they just have to pay me money. No, I want you to understand the process. I want you to understand that if you're saying that there was something wrong, you need to probably file a motion to vacate your conviction and sentence first. If that gets denied, the last stop is going to be seeking clemency, whether it's in the form of a governor's pardon at the state level or a presidential pardon at the federal level or a
Mhm.
governor's commutation at the state level or a presidential pardon at the federal level. You have to exhaust everything first, but people need to keep in mind that forgiveness is what it is. That means you have to accept responsibility. So if
Gotcha.
people are not accepting responsibility, how are you going to be receiving that forgiveness?
That makes sense. You said a mouthful.
I try.
You said a mouthful. So, being that you have retired,
Have I?
you have retired from working in corporate America per se,
Mhm.
and you've started your own firm, right? Is
Yeah.
that correct? What challenges have you faced, if any, since you've made that transition from, you know, working for the government to working for yourself now?
A lot. Hard pause, a lot of challenges. But you know what's crazy? It's the same challenges that I think that most Black entrepreneurs face. I don't look at myself as owning a law firm. I look at myself as owning a business. And I think that's where the success of my business has come in at. You know, I've talked to regular people who have beauty supply stores. I've talked to people who own, you know, large companies. But at the end of the day, I think that the lack of knowledge and information surrounding financing
Yes.
with businesses, how to get the financing, how to do a valuation of your business so that you can set it up to sell, expand, or grow, to get staff, maintain staff. Those are the types of challenges that I faced. And what's funny about it, but it's not really funny, a lot of the clients that have convictions, especially those white collar crimes, it always has something to do with a lack of proper bookkeeping and accounting. Right? So I say clemency through ownership, and that's literal and figurative. The ownership, listen, own and accept responsibility for the crime so that you can get the forgiveness. But also that literal ownership. Own your business, but own it properly. Have your LLC set up properly. Have the bank account set up properly. Have a trust set up properly. And you know how they say, move in silence. Move in silence so when there's popularity, those attacks on your business or those outsiders looking in, assuming that you have everything, they can relax a little bit because they have no idea who actually owns the business. So those are the challenges that I have. And they're no different than the challenges that I see some of my clients have had because before their convictions and a lot of times even after their convictions, having that conviction prevents them from seeking and obtaining and keeping employment. So they always end up starting their own businesses. And I help them create their businesses the right way, protect their intellectual property so that they don't end up back in the criminal justice system again.
I love it. I love it. Where can the people find you? And what is one thing that you would leave to somebody, an aspiring young man or young woman who may be interested in becoming a lawyer? What advice, not even a lawyer, let's just say somebody who want to start their own business. What piece of advice would you give them and where can the people find you?
All right. The piece of advice is be yourself. I have never shied away from the fact that I'm from the southwest side of Houston, Texas. A-Leaf, to be exact. Okay. I've never shied away from that. Everyone who's ever met me knows that. Yeah, Tammy, that's that girl from Texas. Absolutely. And it has contributed to, you know, doors that have been open, the respect that just comes naturally from us being from Texas. Whenever I say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir, in DC, you know, there's just an added layer of respect that's coming from the people that are above you. So be yourself. You stand out. There's only one you. If people laugh, if it's cringy, okay. They're looking at you. That part, right? So just be yourself in whatever you decide to do. And the people can find me, they can find me on Instagram at Attorney Tammy Allison, and also at The Pardon Attorney. The handles are the same on Instagram, Twitter, and on TikTok. The website is www.thepardonattorney.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on an episode of Black Book TV. It was my pleasure to have you as a guest. We look forward to doing more work together and making sure that our businesses are protected, our brands are protected, and that we're out here providing services to those who need them.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you
It's
for
been a
having
pleasure.
me. Thank you for
and
having
make sure that y'all go like, share, comment, and we look forward to seeing y'all on the next episode of Black Book TV. It's been real. Peace.